Hello, everyone. Welcome here. Hard to believe that we're already on our last event for the school year. Follow the Bee Farmers. We're super excited to have you here with us today to learn about honeybee farming and honey production. Teachers and students, please share where you're joining from. As usual, we would love to see what schools you're joining from across the province. So put that in the comments section if you can. Today, we are streaming once again on our Agriculture in the Classroom Manitoba YouTube and Facebook channels. Teachers, a recording of this live event will be made available to you on your teacher dashboard, your Follow Farmers teacher dashboard. So you can watch it as many times as you like and access it at any time. And that is also where you can access the activity related to today's event. We will be coming back after the farm tour video for our question and answer period with our farmers. And students, be sure as you are watching today to think of all those questions that you have for our honey farmers. They are very excited to teach you today and are ready for your questions. So make sure you tell your teachers what those are and they can add them into the comment section during the video. Now I would like to introduce all of you to our farmers today. Ian Steppler farms with his family near Miami, Manitoba. His family farm is a third-generation farm started by his grandfather and carried forward by his parents. Nearly 10 years ago, Ian and his 3 brothers restructured their farm into a company and have since expanded into a large grain, cattle, and beekeeping operation. They crop 3,500 acres of land. They calve 500 to 600 head of purebred Charolais cattle and manage a 1,200 to 1,500 hive apiary. And now even his daughter April helps on the farm and one day plans to join the family beekeeping business. Let's welcome April and Ian right now. Hello, you two.
Hi.
Hi, Larissa. Thanks for having us.
Oh, thank you for bringing us out to your farm. I know all these kids are super excited to learn about honeybees and honey and production today, so we're excited to get going.
Good.
All right, so without further ado, we are going to bring you on to Steppler Honey Farm. Let's go.
Hello everyone, my name's Ian Steppler. I'm the beekeeper for Steppler Honey. We farm just outside of Miami, Manitoba. This is my daughter April. She is on the crew this year. She's going to help with honey extraction this year.
I've been working for my dad this is my 3rd year, and next year I'm planning to go to university at the U of M to take an agriculture course so then I can come back and work as a beekeeper with my dad. As you know, bees have stingers and they sting. And we don't want that, so we like wearing these suits. They're airy so you don't get hot, and they're complete coverage, like mine goes all the way to my ankles so they can't crawl at my ankles. My dad, he's been a beekeeper for a while, so he goes no gloves sometimes. So we have gloves to protect our hands. They zip up all the way. We got our veils on the back, like this, so they can't get at our face. And they just protect us from the stings, so we're safe in the yards.
Suited up, ready to go?
Yep, let's go learn about some bees.
So one of the first things we do as we get into a bee yard is we light our smoker. April's lighting the smoker right now. And what we do is we fill it up with bark. We find some dry grass and some cardboard, and we get it going real nice and strong. So it gives off a real nice heavy smoke, like that. But we don't want it so hot that the smoke will burn the bees. We want a nice cold smoke. So once we get the smoke going like this, we'll use it in the yard to calm the bees. So it just helps us work the bees without them being so angry with us. So you see some bees in the front of the colony here. And the colony arranges themselves with guard bees, first off. They're the ones that defend the nest. And as I open up the colony like this, the guard bees, they sense a disturbance, and what they do is they release an alarm pheromone. And the alarm pheromone is much like an alarm in a house when the intruder's getting in. It's like a bell ringing. So what we do is, as a beekeepers, we use smoke and we neutralize that smell, just like that. So now they can't smell that alarm pheromone. So this is one of my bee yards. I keep 40 colonies in a yard, basically because I don't want too many colonies in a yard once, because then there's too much competition for honey. If you look out to one of our fields here, this is our canola field, and this is where the bees are gathering the honey from. Every colony is a stack, So this is one colony here. This is another colony here. Every colony has a brood box. This is where all the baby bees are developed and raised. And then when the colony grows, we put boxes up on top, and this is where they store the honey. All the boxes up on top here. So this stack of boxes, this is probably 300 pounds of honey in here right now. This is full of honey and it's full of bees. We're gonna dig down into the brood nest. So a brood nest consists of a bunch of frames. I'll pull one out for you. And on these frames, the brood nest is where they raise their brood. The young bees is what it is. And that's why we isolate the brood from the honey boxes, because we want to keep the brood nest, the baby bees, the development down in the bottom box, and then leave the top boxes for honey. So in this colony, the way they arrange their nest is they arrange their nest with honey on the outside and then the baby bees on the inside. So as you can see here, they're starting to fill this nest with honey, some pollen. We have a lot of nice canola pollen in here right now. And then we get into the brood nest. And here's a frame of capped brood. So this is the baby bees. So every colony consists of one queen, a whole bunch of workers, and some drones. And as you can see here, this is mostly workers. These are all females. The females do all the work in the colony. They're the ones that feed the queen. They're the ones that feed the brood. They're the ones that house clean. They're the ones that go out and collect the nectar. And they're the ones that process the nectar into honey. They're the ones that defend the nest. The worker bees are the ones that do all the work in the colonies. The drones, here's a drone here. So if there's a nest of, let's say, 75,000 bees, let's say, there'd be about 1,000 drones. And the drones, they mate. That's the only thing they do. They don't clean, they don't collect honey, they don't feed the queen, they don't defend the nest. Actually, they don't even have a stinger in the back of them. All they do is they mate with the queen. That's their only purpose within the nest. The queen is the one that lays all the eggs. She'll start in the spring and she'll lay her body weight every day. So we're looking at anywhere between 1,000 or up to 2,000 eggs every day as she's developing out this nest. So there's only one queen in each colony, and the queen will live up to 1 or 2, sometimes 3 years. And when the queen gets too old, what the colony do is they'll actually kill her off and develop a new queen. So on this brood frame, there's a lot going on in this brood frame right now. The queen has laid a whole bunch of eggs in here. You probably can't see the eggs, but they look like little tiny grains of rice in the bottom. And after 3 days, those eggs will hatch and they'll turn to larvae. And what the larvae do is they grow within the little cells here. All these little worker bees will feed the larvae until it gets old enough, it'll be capped. And it spends the rest of its time underneath the wax cappings. You'll see this little peanut cell here. That is a new queen being developed right now. And that queen will emerge and she'll kill off the old queen. But this one actually hasn't killed off the old queen because this virgin queen here has already killed her off. The first virgin queen that emerges kills the old queen and then kills off all her competition. So her job now is to search all these cells, and she's going to destroy every cell within this nest to make sure she's the only one living. Now the queen bee is developed from the same egg laid from the queen, except they're raised a little bit differently. They're fed a different diet. There's the immature queen here, and she's fed a very rich royal jelly diet. And this is what develops out her sex organs. It allows her to lay eggs. So royal jelly is basically the food that the bees feed, the nurse feed the brood. So every one of these little bees that are being developed is fed royal jelly. The queen bee's fed just a very specific royal jelly, which is a very high protein food. So what happens in every colony every morning is the nest pretty much sits an idle. They're sitting there, they're just waiting for the signal to start work. What happens is scout bees will go out and they'll start collecting nectar within the area. So like to say there'd be about 10 scout bees go out, they'll find nectar sources, they'll come back, and they'll communicate to all the rest of the bees within this nest where those foraging sources are. So I'm the scout bee, and I found my source of nectar. I bring it back to the nest, and I hand that to you. And you're like, oh, that's really good.
This is good. Where'd you get this?
You want to know. So now I have to tell her where I found that foraging source out there, and bees can't talk, and they're in the dark, so they can't see anything. So what the bees do is they do a little bit of a dance, and they'll do a dance like this in the comb like this, and they'll shake their bums. And with every little shake, it will give off a vibration, and the direction of their dance and the intensity of their dance will draw a map where that forager bee found that nectar source. The forager will bring the nectar back from the field, and she'll stand on the front step, and she'll wait for a processor bee to come, and the forager will give the payload of nectar to the processor bee, and then the forager will get back to the field right away. So she's always collecting. The processor bee will take that nectar, and she'll bring it up, and she'll process that nectar into honey. And right here, what you see is cured honey. And this is what we as a beekeeper will process. As we're ready to harvest, so we don't have to lift these boxes, we use this easy loader boom. So what it does is it allows us to lift up all these honey boxes, and then we can take these honey boxes full of honey and load it onto the truck. Once we've collected the honey from the yards, we bring them back to the honey house to process the honey from the boxes. We call this the hot room. We keep it warm at 33 degrees. We want it warm so the honey flows out easier. Now that the boxes have sat for a number of days to clear the rest of the bees and to warm up, we bring the boxes of honey into the honey production facility here to extract the honey.
Sometimes these boxes can still have a few bees in them, so we'll take this and just spray along the frames like that to get any straggler bees out, and then they fall into here, which are then placed back outside into the hives so that they can get back to work.
Now that the boxes are staged on the conveyor, we need to take these frames out, and we're going to push them into the extractor. One tool we use to do that, so we don't have to physically pull every frame out of every box, we use this frame pusher. So basically what it does, if you step on a pedal, it lifts all the frames up out of the box, ready for the extractor.
To access the honey, we need to remove this capping. So we send them through this belt here. There's a blade going back and forth really fast that will cut off all the cappings, so then the honey's free, but then it doesn't get all of it, so we'll take this scratcher here and we'll just open them up so that the extractor can get the honey out of them.
Once the frames go through the uncapper, they collect on this conveyor. This conveyor holds 60 frames, and what this does is just waits. It stages the frames ready for the extractor. So we're just about to open up the extractor. We'll show you us loading and unloading the extractor to spin out this honey. Now that the conveyor is full and the extractor is spun out, we're ready to load the extractor again. So April's going to show you the process.
Right now I just braked it and stopped it, so that stops it from spinning. Now these are all empty frames. They just emptied down here, and we're gonna hook it on right here. These are all frames full of honey. We're gonna crank it in. Now the extractor's full of 60 full honey frames. And we're gonna spin it, turn it on, and close.
Now as the frames spin, it pulls the honey out of the frames and it throws the honey against the wall of the extractor, and then down to the bottom, then back to the front. It augers the honey back to the front into this sump. So as the honey makes its way back to the sump, it fills up with honey, and as all these wax cappings that we take off with a knife drop down, now we want to separate the honey and the wax.
So after this tank here fills, there's a pump right here that signals an overflow. You turn it on. This whole pump turns on and the honey gets flowed through here, gets sucked up through this tube and over there. This whole section here is a heating system, so it heats the honey.
Once the honey is warmed, it flows down into our centrifuge, and this is where we separate out the honey and the wax. So the honey and wax flows into the top, and it flows into a spinning drum. And in that spinning drum, it floats out the wax. And as that wax floats, there's a little knife that shaves dry wax cappings, and then the honey flows out against this wall, down into my sump as pure honey. It is then pumped up into our bottling tank, and this is where we then fill the barrels of honey. And now for the fun part, is when we pour the honey into the drum.
We get these big drums from Bee Made, fill them up with the switch, and fill them up.
Liquid gold. Thanks for coming out with me and my daughter out to the bee yards and into the honey house. We showed you how we produce honey and how we work so hard and producing our product.
Next time you're at the grocery store, keep an eye out for our product on the shelves. Bye.
Bye.
So awesome. Thank you so much, Ian and April, for bringing us onto your farm. I know I learned a bunch, and I'm sure all the students did too. That's so, so cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Once I want to get back into processing honey right now.
Yes. And I guess before we jump into questions, I guess you're kind of in prep stage right now, right? Getting ready for the hives to go back out into the fields and for the next season.
Yeah, we've just moved the colonies out of the winter shed right now, and I've put them into my spring holding yards. So now they're getting their first flight of the year. They're getting out and about. We're finding some feed we put out for them, and the year starts again. They'll start developing out the nest, and then we'll move them out into their summer yards later on in spring and get ready for the summer flow.
Amazing. Are you adding on any extra colonies this year, or are you kind of keeping with the same that you had last summer?
We'll hold steady until April. She's in grade 12. She wants to come back and honey farm. So once she comes back to the farm, we can expand a little bit, but I'm pretty busy.
Yes. Awesome. Well, without further ado, we have some good time left to answer some student questions. So we're going to start off with 2 questions that came in a little bit before the event. And the first one is from Quinn. And Quinn is a grade 4 student. And Quinn is wondering, where do bees live during the winter?
Where do the bees live during the winter? I'll take this one. Actually, we've just taken the bees out of our winter shed, put them into their spring holding yards. So what we do is we winter our bees inside a climate-controlled room. It's a great big 45 by 50 room, and we keep it cool in this room or warm, I guess you could say, through the winter in this room to protect them from the harsh winter. So we'll put them into this room. We'll bring them in with the bee truck and with the forklift, and then stack all the colonies within this room, and we'll move them in. It'll be around, Remembrance Day, beginning of November. And this time of year is when we start moving them back out. So they winter inside our shed. Okay.
And how warm is it in that shed, Ian?
It's average? 4 degrees. We like to keep it at 4 degrees. So not too cold, not too warm. So 4 degrees, about the same temperature as your fridge. And they just, stay nice and tight and just hang on all winter, and then they
snuggle up for the winter. Awesome. Great question, Quinn. Okay, we have one more pre-question here. So this is from Adam. Adam's a grade 5 student, and he is wondering, how long does a honeybee live for?
Well, they usually live for about 6 weeks in the summer when they go out and perform all their tasks. But then it's interesting because in the winter, the queen doesn't lay eggs anymore. So they have to be able to survive through winter. So the bees actually end up living for about 5 months, 4 months in the winter.
Super cool. It's amazing that they know how to do that.
Yeah.
Like,
And the queen bee, actually, queen bee will live 3 years, 2-3 years, sometimes 4 years. So the queen is able to hang on with longevity a lot longer than a worker or drone bee.
okay, and is there just enough little bits of honey left in the hive for them to kind of eat to last that length of time, or what do they eat while they're in there?
Oh, you should show the thing.
Yeah, actually, that's the reason why honeybees collect and store honey, is to be able to feed on a resource for energy to get them through winter. It's kind of like they're almost like a bear. No, but bears eat bees. So, but like a bear will put on fat and then go off and hibernate. And the bees kind of do the same thing. They don't technically hibernate, but what they do is they store honey within the nest. And during winter, they'll cluster over the honey and they'll feed on the honey all winter to create warmth, to keep them warm. So they use the honey as a food source to keep themselves warm, to get them from fall all the way to spring, when they can get new resources from flowers in the spring.
Interesting. That's super neat. Very, very cool. Thanks, you two. Okay, we're going to jump into the live questions here. You ready?
You bet.
Okay. So the first one, this is from Lisa Yasku. Rachel is wondering, she would like to know, how many bees do you have? Ooh.
You know how many bees I have?
Some math here.
80 million, I think, right?
Yeah. So every bee will have, we'll need a calculator for this, but that's 1,500. Do you have a calculator, Larissa?
I do. Let's do it.
Let's say 1,500.
1,500
colonies. Let's say in the middle of summer, there'll be, let's say, about 60,000 bees per colony. So how many bees is that?
So 1,500 times 60,000?
60,000, yeah. That's a lot of
You
zeros.
have 90 million.
90 million bees, yeah. On my payroll. They're working hard for me.
Yeah. It's good. That's good payroll. It's a lot of employees that you got working for you. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Good question, Rachel. All right, let's pull in another one here. Okay, Annie Dewan. They are wondering, what happens if there is no queen bee? Does that ever happen?
Yeah, sometimes the queen will die off for certain reasons, like disease, or she'll just die. And the queen, what she does is she gives like a pheromone to the bees, and that's what keeps them working. So if the queen dies, they'll either make a new queen or the hive will die off. So they can't live without their queen.
Okay, and now when you say the hive dies off, that's the entire stack, the whole colony.
Yeah, they'll all die.
Actually, in the video, when I was showing you the little queen cell, that's exactly what was happening at that stage. Is the bees, they were replacing the old queen because she wasn't giving off enough pheromone anymore. So the bees sensed, okay, this queen's getting old. So they started building new queens with those little queen cells.
Right.
And then there's a virgin queen running around, and she was going to take over the nest. So it's a very risky move for a colony to requeen themselves, but they need to refresh the nest all the time to be able to survive.
Interesting. Very, very cool. Good question, Annie. All right. Do we have another one here? We do. Doesn't take long. Sam, grade 3 student, is wondering, how does a bee produce honey? Ooh.
You want to take that?
Well, they go out to the flowers, and flowers produce nectar. So the bees will take the nectar and bring it back to their hive, and then they'll put them into their little cells. And there's a bee that's like kind of like a cook bee, kind of, and they add some nutrients and enzymes to the honey, and they'll stir it and dry it, and they'll turn into honey.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, bees, they collect nectar, and they also bring, does the pollen serve any purpose for the honey? Like that comes back on their bodies, attached to their legs and their bodies and wings and...
Yeah, the honey is the energy source. That's where they get their energy from. But to build bees, like to make the little baby bees, they need a protein source. And that's what the pollen is a protein source to build the bees themselves. So that they use like eating bread or eating a pizza or just your dinner. That's what they use to be able to develop out the nest. The honey is used for the energy.
Okay. I did not know that. That's super cool. So nectar and pollen kind of have their own purposes within the hive.
They have their own place, and it's very important that bees have access to a large diversity of flowers within the countryside, because every flower has a different nutritional value to it.
And because of that, they need a little bit from this flower, a little bit from that flower, and they mix it all together, and it turns into a very high protein diet for them. It's almost like when I go to the buffet, I always load up on steak and potatoes, right? But my wife's putting vegetables on the side because she's trying to balance out my diet. So the bees do the same thing with different flowers. They'll find like a dandelion honey, and dandelion pollen coming in, but dandelion pollen isn't very nutritious. But they'll go out and they'll find some apple or plum and they'll bring it in. They'll mix the two together like that, and that'll make the balanced diet for them to build the bees with.
Very interesting.
Yeah,
Thanks,
it's amazing, really. Yeah,
it is absolutely amazing.
The reason why, as beekeepers or as honeybees or even native pollinators, it's the reason why we need like a diversity of plants growing across the countryside, because they need the diversity to be able to sustain their growth. Very important.
Okay. Very, very neat. Great question. That's awesome. Do we have another one here? We do. Okay. Lisa Yasku's class. Thomas is wondering, how much honey do you get? So I'm assuming after a season's done, how much honey would you be loading in and sending off to stores?
Do you know how much I produce?
Yeah, about 350,000 pounds.
350,000 pounds. So that's about, I don't have a
350 blocks of butter, I guess?
Yeah, like 150,000 containers, but it equals to about 8 or 9 semi-loads of honey we produce every year.
Wow.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
That's why I hire so many kids. I hire school kids from Miami to help me on the honey farm to carry all the honey onto the truck and then into the honey house. And you see my staff in the video, extracting the honey. It's a way too much work for me. So I pay the kids quite well to help me extract all the honey.
Hard work.
They do all the hard work for me. I just walk around and they make me look good.
That's awesome. Thank you, Thomas. Great question. Okay, so this is from Elena, grade 3 student. What is the wax made of?
Wax is made from the honey that the bees ingest, and wax is specifically made from young bees. And what happens is the young bee eats the nectar, and she sheds off wax like here I described a piece of paper off their abdomen, and it just kind of starts to flake off the side of them like this, almost like dandruff. And so they'll be hanging on there, and another bee will come and will grab this little flake of wax. Yeah. And then what they do is almost like putty. With their little hands, they'll form it into a bee hive cell, and they'll wax capping and stuff. So wax is made from nectar, but by baby bees.
Okay. Do you have any, I know you have a frame with you there, Ian. Is there any wax cappings on there that we can show the students up close so they can see what the wax looks like on the frame?
Comes through. So this is a frame that comes from my brood nest.
Yeah, if you hold it up a little bit higher.
Okay, I'll try to.
There we go. Perfect. Yeah.
Can you hold that? Yeah. Hold it in the screen. I'll just grab my hive tool. So this is a honey frame from the brood nest, and you can see all the little honeycombs. This is made out of wax. And what they do is they fill the honeycombs with nectar, and they cure it into honey. And after the nectar is cured into honey, what they do is they cap it off. So they'll cap every one of these little cells with a little wax cap.
Okay.
Like that. And it's just like when your mom cans, let's say fruit or vegetables, to preserve that can, she puts on a lid. And that's basically what the bees do, is on every one of these cells, they'll grab one of those flakes of wax and they'll make a little wax cap and they'll put it over top. And that helps preserve the honey within that nest. I don't know if you can see that.
And then that's what gets scraped off and separated.
Yeah, that's what we have to be able to get the honey out when we're processing. We have to scrape off all these little wax caps to allow the honey to flow out of the frame. But the bees within the nest, they'll come in and they'll just, take off the little lid like that, and then they can access the honey and then they'll consume it.
So cool. Great question. Okay, so this is coming from Maryland Park School, a grade 3 class. And they're wondering, do you do anything or have any use for the wax afterwards?
Yeah, we do. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, after you saw in the video, after we get those wax shavings, we put them into like this big melter, and it melts all the wax into like liquid wax. And then we pour that into these big blocks, and then we sell them like bricks of wax basically to people to make candles and lip balm, and any sort of
Okay.
thing.
Wow. And how much wax would you say that you would sell after a season?
The math usually works out to about 1% of my total production, so roughly 2,000 pounds or so.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of wax.
It's a lot of wax, yeah. Lots of candles and lots of lip balm.
I love the smell of a beeswax candle. I think they're such a nice smell.
Yes.
Very,
That's
very cool.
overpowering.
Do you keep some for yourself and make your own candles at home, or?
Yeah, we do. Yeah,
You do?
all the time. Yeah, we sell some also.
Very cool. Awesome. Great question, Marilyn Park. Oh, we got another one from them. This is an awesome one. Can humans eat the royal jelly?
Yeah, absolutely. The royal jelly is a very high protein kind of goo. It doesn't taste very good, but it's there's people that actually will focus their entire business around producing royal jelly, and they'll sell it in specialty stores because there's health properties to it. So it's interesting. We don't do that. That's a lot of work, and I don't eat the royal jelly because it doesn't taste very good. But it's got very interesting characteristics to it, and supposedly it's good for you.
How would you describe the taste of royal jelly? Out of curiosity.
It's like kind of bitter, awful, but kind of like a piece of butter on your tongue. And it just the texture isn't very good. You know, it's what, or maybe yogurt, something like that doesn't have a good taste to it.
Okay. Huh. Great question. I wouldn't have thought to ask that one. That's awesome. Okay, Stephen would like to know if they could see a picture of the queen bee.
Oh, shoot. No, I don't have a picture of a queen bee. I have to show us.
That's okay, Stephen. You know what I could do? If you guys have a picture of one, you can send it to me and I can send it out to all the students after the event.
Yeah, we could do that. There's differences between what the bees look like. The worker bees are a little bit smaller and slender. They have to be able to fly out very efficiently to the field, so they're very aerodynamic. A queen bee is much larger because her ovaries have developed out in her abdomen, so she's a much bigger looking worker bee. So she's noticeably bigger because she performs different tasks. Where a drone bee, it doesn't have to do anything but mate, so it's just kind of this great big square bulky thing that walks around like this. Yeah, so they all have a different characteristic to them.
Okay. Does a queen bee have a stinger?
Ian? She does, yeah. Really? She'll sting occasionally. She uses the stinger to kill other queens as they're trying to figure out who's going to dominate the nest to look after the nest when they're queening. The queen doesn't have a barb on her stinger, so she can sting multiple times. But a worker bee has a barb on its stinger, and what happens is when you get stung, the barb will get stuck in your skin, and as the bee flies away, that barb will pull away the venom sac, and that venom sac will then get stuck in your skin. And what it does is that venom sac will pulsate like this and injects the venom into your body, and it hurts. It hurts a lot. And as it's pulsating like this, it's giving off an alarm pheromone, and it's telling other bees within the area that's where the intruder is. So the other bees will come to that spot and keep stinging you. So that's why there's a stinger in the venom sac, is to keep the venom sac in the person or the bear or raccoon, something that stings. Yeah.
Crazy. I'm smiling because I probably shouldn't be smiling. I got stung last summer, and I remember watching it pulse on my on a hand like that. I thought it was just because it was still, maybe one half of it was still partially alive. But now that I know that it was injecting more into me, so that's good to know.
So what you want to do when you get stung, you don't want to, the venom sac is pulsating like this, injecting venom in you. So you want to get it off because it hurts. A lot of people will go like this and they'll try to pinch it off. You don't want to do that because you pinch all the venom into your body and then it hurts even more. So what you want to do is take your fingernail, or, if you're working a bee yard, you have a hive tool or a credit card or something, and just kind of scrape it off. And that way it doesn't inject more venom into you. And then you want to cover it up and be nice and calm and just kind of walk away, because you want to cover up that smell so no other bees can smell it, and then calmly walk away so you don't, if you start waving your hands like this and then they say, oh, there's the intruder, and they come and find you even quicker. Yeah.
Good point. I will remember that. Remember that, kids.
It's hard to do when you're in the moment because it hurts a lot. And then
yes, it is.
Panic, but the bees notice the panic and they go after the panic, and they can smell the fear. So you want to just stay calm
and just carry on, and then,
Okay.
and then they'll forget about you.
Life lessons with the Stepplers. I like it. Okay, let's see if we have another question here. Okay, Marilyn Park. Does the pain of a sting come from the stinger or the venom or both?
What do you think?
I'd say it comes from both, but mostly the venom. Because like the bees, some bees stings will hurt less than others because they'll have weaker venom. And the ones with strong venom, it hurts so bad.
Yeah, every once in a while we'll get a super sting, is what we call it. It feels like someone just smacked you with a hammer. It hurts.
Ouch.
Other stings you're like, oh, that's annoying. You just kind of scrape it away.
Yeah,
Ouch.
every once in a while there's a really bad one.
Yeah.
How many stings, April? I'm just out of curiosity. How many stings would you say that you've gotten on the farm working there with your dad?
Probably over 100 stings
Crazy.
in the 3 years I've worked.
Yep.
How many
Okay.
times have you been stung?
Countless times.
I can tell you that when I got stung this morning, it hurt the same as the first one I got stung.
Well, we thank you for your bravery, because the honey is delicious and we really appreciate you producing it for us.
I don't swell up anymore, though. I used to swell up when I first got into the business. If I got stung in the arm, my whole arm would swell up like this.
Wow.
Because the venom in the body it's not recognizing it, so it attacks and it starts to swell. But my body is used to it now, and it just hurts, so I don't swell up anymore. Do you swell? I don't think you swell up anymore.
I swell up a little bit, but not too bad. It just depends.
Okay. Your
Less
stinger
than I
vets. Great question, Marilyn Park. Okay, so we have a few more minutes for a few more questions. I think we'll do maybe another 5 minutes of questions if we have enough here. This is coming from Fiona, grade 3 student. And Fiona's wondering, do other kinds of bees make honey other than honeybees?
No, just honeybees. Honeybees make honey. There's other native pollinators. You'll see little pollinators flying all over the place, collecting nectar from the flowers. They have different functions of surviving the winter, so they don't need to store this huge amount of honey to be able to get through winter. That's the reason why honeybees gather nectar to make it into honey, to be able to get that colony. They survive the winter in a colony through that period of time, where the native bees they're more solitary, so they don't require that collection of food. Bumblebees, they'll bring in nectar and make it in kind of like a little honey. They'll have these little honey pots within their nest, but they don't store a huge amount of honey like the honeybee does.
Okay, I didn't know that. Great question, Fiona. That's awesome. Okay, we have another one here. Deanna would like to know how many years you have been bee farmers.
25 years for me. Yeah.
Wow. And how did you, I like your story, just real quick, Ian, about how you got into honeybee farming. Can you share that with the kids?
Yeah, sure. I've been a farmer all my life. I grew up on a farm, 3rd generation farmer, cattle farmer, grain farmer. Mom and dad sent me off to university because they figured I needed to get away from the farm. All I wanted to do is farm. So and I took Diploma of Agriculture at University of Manitoba. And second year of going through the course, I needed 2 credits to pass. And I had an option of taking a dairy lab for 4 credits, or this beekeeping course with this after hours course for 2 credits. And I didn't want to take dairy, so I figured I'd take this beekeeping course. But the problem was the beekeeping course. Well, maybe I shouldn't tell this part. Yeah, I'll just kind of make it friendly. It's after hours and on a Wednesday night, and it just happens to be when the bar was open at campus. Yeah. But my buddy said, no, my buddy's in the same spot as I was. He said, oh, no, let's take the course and then go to the bar after, and then we'll get our 2 credits, and then we have fun at the same time. So that's what we did, and they caught my interest. I bought 4 colonies and turned it 8, and then turned into 16, and then this is really cool. And then I started making a little business out of it, and it just grew into something where it is right now. So my entire livelihood is basically based on the honey farm. Yep. Everything that you see and what's going on here now is based on that one little decision I made in university. So it was kind of neat.
That's really neat. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to keep going here for a couple more minutes. Evan would like to know how many people work for you.
It varies through the year. During the winter, there isn't a lot to do, so I don't have any workers through the winter. But through the spring, I start hiring guys on because we start getting busy.
growing the bees, feeding the bees, managing the bees. And then into the summer period when they start collecting honey, and they start stacking the boxes, and when we have to start extracting the honey and processing it, then I will hire school kids as they, go on to their summer break. So once they leave school, I hire them onto the honey farm. They will work hard for me. I pay them a lot of money. They extract a lot of honey for me. And then after the honey season, they go back to school. So it'll be about 8 kids I'll hire through the summer period.
Okay, awesome. Great question, Evan. Okay, I know there's a lot more questions. We're going to try and do a few more here real quick, so we're running close to time. So let's keep rolling here. Brielle, grade 3 student, is wondering, do other bee farms do the same thing that you do on your farm?
Basically the same thing, maybe in a little bit different ways with different facility and different equipment. But a bee is a bee is a bee. And we as beekeepers just manage those bees the best we can to grow them into these monster nests to be able to bring in this monster honey crop off the crops. So it's basically the same thing, but just little differences here and there.
Yeah, great question, Brielle. All right, let's keep rolling here. We'll do a couple more. Lexi, where do bees live in the summer if it's too hot?
Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, when it gets really hot, they still stay in their hives, so they don't actually go anywhere else, but they'll start going outside their hive and kind of flapping their wings and fanning and trying to cool off, but they'll just stay out there and kind of live out the heat.
The bees will regulate the temperature within the nest. They're almost like little air conditioners. What they'll do is they'll go and forage for water, like the same water that we drink. And what they'll do with the water is they'll coat it on the inside of the entire colony, inside, on the box, on the frames, everywhere inside. And then they have little bees at the entrance, and they'll flap their little wings. They'll hang on to the entrance and flap their wings like this, and they'll pull air out of the colony and then air into the colony. So it circulates air throughout the entire colony.
Wow.
And what it'll do is it'll evaporate that water that they have little droplets everywhere. And that's what cools the nest down. So they're like little air conditioners.
That's very, very neat.
They need a lot of water to do that. So a very hot summer, you'll notice bees, searching around swimming pools or, creek beds or places like that. Maybe your tap on the house might be drops of water, and they'll find water wherever they can to help regulate the temperature within the nest.
Okay. Very cool. Great question, Lexi. Okay, let's pull in 2 more. I'm going to push it right to the end here. All right. So Miranda would like to know how you get bees off of the flats. I'm assuming that means the frames.
Yeah. There's lots of different ways of doing it. Some people will, they'll pull the frame of honey out of the nest, and then they have a brush, and they'll just brush the bees off. And that's a really good way of doing it. It's a lot of work because you have to handle every frame. Other people, what they'll do is they'll take this leaf blower and they'll tip up the box and they'll blow the bees out. Well, that makes them very angry.
I would think so.
So what we've done is we've adopted a method where we use that lift you've seen in the video, and we'll lift up all the boxes, and then we'll put this board in, and we'll put the boxes back up on top. And what that board does is it allows the bees to come through, but they can't come back up. So when the bees, process the honey, they go down through this clear board down to the front to get more honey. They'll come back up and they can't get through. So they'll work underneath that. So in about 3 days, all the bees will have moved from the top boxes down to the bottom. And then we'll come with the easy loader, we'll grab it. And now it's just boxes with frames of honey, no bees in the boxes anymore. We'll load it onto the truck. There's always just a few bees within the boxes. And that's what April was showing in the video. She had that little air gun just kind of taking out maybe 1 or 2 bees in there just so they don't get into the honey when you extract it.
Okay. Great question. Okay. I know we're running a couple minutes over time. Let's take one last question and then we'll move to wrap things up for the day. Okay. So Ethan, grade 3 student, what happens if the queen survives when the new queen bee comes to kill it? Ooh.
Yeah, that's a good question. Do you know what happens?
You explain it.
That rarely happens. So the old queen bee, she's not giving off enough pheromone anymore, and the colony has recognized that she's getting old.
Yeah. She's
getting old. She's starting to walk around slow, and her stinger where she can, fight, it maybe she can't swing around quick enough to defend herself. Where those young queens that's going to replace her in that nest, they're very agile, and they're fast, and they're very mean. So they'll come and they'll find that old queen, and as she, tries to defend herself, that new little queen is to, and she'll kill that old queen off. Nature is very cruel sometimes, but there is never, every once in a while, you'll find a nest with 2 queens where that queen that's going to take over, maybe seen some pity on the old queen, is, okay, you can stick around. And then I'll find 2 queens working together in the nest, but not very often. Okay. Typically, that new queen will come and kill off that old queen.
She'll do her job. Gotcha. That's a really cool question. Thanks, Ethan. All right, so we're going to wrap things up here today, students. We hope that you had an awesome time learning about honeybee farming. I can pretty much guarantee that you did. A big thank you to you, Ian and April, for allowing us to come onto your farm to film this farm tour video, but then also taking your time to share and teach all the students and teachers today across the province. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Larissa. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great.
That's awesome. So teachers, I want to remind you that you have access to the recording of this farm tour video on your dashboard. And we also have a really fun honeybee skittle dance activity that you can do with your students in your classroom. That will be a lot of fun and teach them a little bit more about how bees communicate within the hive. All of the recordings from this entire season, Bison, Corn, and Bees, are available up on your dashboard as well, with the accompanying activities alongside with them. Teachers, as a reminder, if you are not signed up for a teacher e-news, it's a great opportunity to get on the list to get updates on all the new resources that we're doing and programs that we're offering, and you get those notices throughout the year so that you can sign up for them. A huge thank you to Penner Farm Services for their amazing sponsorship of these videos and the creation of these videos. And just thank you overall for your partnership with us. We couldn't do this program without you. So thank you again. And Ian and April, again, thank you so much for bringing us out to Steppler Honey. You guys are awesome, and we learned a ton. Thank you very much. As I said, this is our last one for this school year. So teachers, be sure to dive into that dashboard if you haven't watched some of the videos or done any of the activities, and soak those up before the end of the school year. And be sure to keep on tabs with Agriculture in the Classroom Manitoba to hear more about what we have coming up. Thank you, everyone, for attending today. Thank you again to Ian and April, and have a great day and a great spring.
Bye.
Bye.